Hi, and welcome to the Guide to Being an Entrepreneur. Today we're going to talk about the legal side, the law side of an entrepreneurial startup, and that's why we're here in the law school. The first thing I want to talk about are different ways of defining your company and identifying as a company, as a startup. And I want to talk about two of the really popular ones and important ones that startups usually go towards. The first one is LLC, Limited Liability Company. And that's just a different way of defining your company so that there are different legal sides that you can get away with. So limited liability in the name, there's a lot less liability with you and your assets, but we'll talk about it in a second. I'm going to go through a list of the advantages and disadvantages of an LLC so you get a better picture of what it can do. First thing is the limited liability part, which I mentioned before. Members are protected from personal liability for business decisions or actions of the LLC. This means that if the LLC incurs debt or is sued, members' personal assets are usually exempt. This is similar to the liability protections afforded to shareholders of a corporation. Keep in mind that limited liability means limited liability. Members are not necessarily shielded from wrongful acts, including those of their employees. So be mindful of what you're teaching your employees and what they're doing, because it could affect you even in an LLC. Another advantage is less record keeping. In LLC's operational ease is one of the greatest advantages. Compared to an S corporation, there is less registration, paperwork, and there are smaller startup costs. When you're thinking about your startup, think about the less paperwork and those costs that you can save, well, which I'll talk about in a different segment, but it's always great to save costs. Last thing I want to talk about for advantages is sharing of profits. There are few restrictions on profit sharing within an LLC, as members distribute profits as they see fit. Members might contribute different proportions of capital and sweat equity. Consequently, it's up to the members themselves to decide who has earned what percentage of the profits or losses. This puts a lot of pressure on the owners, but it's a great pressure. It's a lot of power that you can use to say, okay, this person worked really well this year, and we have this amount of money and we're going to give it to this person. So that allocation of your resources is a great way to reward your employees. Some of the disadvantages of an LLC is limited life. In many states, when a member leaves an LLC, the business is dissolved and the members must fulfill all remaining legal and business obligations to close the business. The remaining members can decide if they want to start a new LLC or part ways. However, you can include provisions in your operating agreement to prolong the life of the LLC if a member decides to leave the business. This is really important to think about when you have a startup and when you're picking your team. If you have a startup and someone's a little wishy-washy and they don't know if they're going to stay on board, make sure you know that when you're deciding what company you want to do and if LLC is the right thing for you. The last disadvantage I want to talk about is self-employment taxes. Members of an LLC are considered self-employed and must pay the self-employment tax contributions towards Medicare and Social Security. The entire net income of the LLC is subject to this tax. So although you have passable taxation in the LLC, which is just a different form of taxation, you do get taxed in this way. So make sure that when you're thinking about an LLC, yes, there are some things that you can do for tax breaks, but you also pay taxes in different ways. So go through all your options and think about the different ways of saving costs. PLLCs is just a professional limited liability company, and these are just professionals that are licensed, like a chiropractor or a lawyer. You want to do this if you're a startup and you're doing something like contracts for wills or something like that. So think about that if you're a professional that is licensed and you're starting up soon. Some of the other things I want to talk about is intellectual property. This is a big topic in startups because you can get in a lot of trouble with intellectual property. Intellectual property is defined as a legal term that refers to the creations of the mind, which is pretty broad, but it's meant to be because it covers so many different aspects of intellectual property and what you come up with as a startup. IP is morally ambiguous and legally uncertain. It's really difficult to find what's okay and what's not okay in the intellectual property world. You don't know if this patent covers what you're doing or doesn't cover what you're doing. You don't know if you can get a patent for what you're doing. It's a really strange area, but it's definitely necessary because you can get sued, you can get your business shut down, and it can put your business on hold for a long time. So make sure you do a lot of research and know what you're getting yourself into. Patents typically just get in the way of other people's ideas, but it can be necessary when you're talking about infringement on another patent. So for example, if you have an idea and you want to patent it, that could be good because if someone sues you for, let's say that you broke their patent, you can say, well, I got my patent, and that will definitely hold up in the court of law, or at least help a lot. So, although it is found to be unnecessary for a lot of entrepreneurs, it can help in that way. The last thing I want to talk about is copyright. Copyright is a legal right created by the law of a country that grants the creator of an original work exclusive rights to its use and distribution, usually for a limited time, with the intention of enabling the creator to receive compensation for the intellectual effort. This is important because not everything can be patented, and not everything can say, okay, this is my product and no one can copy it. Some of these things are copyright things, like music or writing, songs, books. So you want to have that ability to say, this is my work, and although it's not something concrete or tangible exactly, this is my work and I have the rights to my work, my ideas, my songs, my books, my novels. So make sure you look at all these different options, whether you're going into a product or service, or you're writing music, or you're singing, or any of the above. Make sure you look at intellectual property, and make sure you look at the ways to define your company, because that will definitely help in the legal side and get you out of legal trouble. That wraps it up for the legal side, and we'll see you next time.